everybody. Welcome to the Open Mic Comedy Podcast. If this is your first time here, welcome. If you're a returning listener, welcome back. My name's Mark. With me today is somebody who's a repeat guest. So if you listened to any of the episodes before, you may well have heard this person being mentioned. The best thing I can say about him is that he was the original. He was the OG. He was number one. And now he's here to return. Please welcome to the stage. It's Mr. Christopher Ali.
Thank you very much, Mark.
How you doing?
Yeah, happy to be up, man. Yeah, good. You see me hobbling around a little bit. Obviously, I was playing tag rugby earlier on, but doing all right. But how are you? How's your foot? How's your ankle?
This is first aiders here, isn't it?
Yeah. Well,
I've done my ankle in, but it's getting better.
What did you do? Just
I fell over walking to a gig. So if any
start of a fucking bad joke.
Yeah. So if anybody's actually seen my set, I do make a joke about getting old and the wife thinking, oh, if you might fall over.
Yeah.
And I always say, well, I'm only 40 odd years old. I'm not just going to fall over.
Yeah.
So the moment I messaged her and said I've fallen over, she
now
laughed.
Yeah, there you go. Well done.
And the people outside the gym came running out to pick a poor 47-year-old man off the pavement and put me on a chair and asked if I was all right.
Yeah.
I still went to the gig, took some paracetamol and
did you do well?
Some beer.
Murder?
I actually didn't. I wouldn't say I murdered, but I did all right. It's better than my first gig of the year.
Yeah.
It didn't go quite as I wanted to for the start of 2025. It was a famous competition that happens on the open mic circuit. And I would just say I was unprepared.
What competition is this?
It's the G&B one. New act competition. So everybody knows it.
Yeah.
But it was one of those where I kind of openly put my hands up and say I was completely unprepared.
Yeah.
It wasn't the best.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's enough about me. What about yourself? So if we rewind now nearly 13 months since you came on first time, things have changed somewhat.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, like, I must say, if anyone who is actually listening, I asked Mark to be back, so that's why. Because we were, I don't know where we was, if it was the OM at Christmas time or something, and, you know, I was getting really reflective of just the whole year and things that was going on. And then, it was the OM, wasn't it, where you'd said I was on the first one a year ago.
Yeah.
And, you know, like, no one outside of doing stand-up really gives a fuck what you have to say about it, really, you know, especially like my girlfriend and stuff. And I wanted a chance to express it. And for me, it just made a lot of sense because, like, I don't know. I don't know. I thought you'd have me on, or I at least wanted to ask just a chance to be able to talk about it, really. And see where the progress has been to some degree. And
So basically a year ago.
And also get the publicity because I was guest number one. And, you know, this podcast is blowing up. So do like and subscribe. You know, I don't want to. I'm really. It was being asked to be on the very first open mic is still the biggest honor I've had starting stand up, hands down, and that's not even a lie. But obviously, no one actually fucking watched it because. So you know, I want to be back. You know what I mean? Now you've got thousands of listeners.
Oh no, there's plenty of people that listen to it. The numbers are good.
Yeah.
But so going back like a year ago, then the OM was kind of very much in its infancy. And you were, I think, around 150 gigs in, something like that.
Maybe a bit under, bit over, something like that, yeah.
And you were still doing, I don't know if I'm wrong in science, but you weren't kind of breaking into tens and stuff. Like you were still kind of around the 7-minute mark and slowly pushing that envelope a little bit more to get further on.
Yeah.
And now the OM's another year older. Mm-hmm. And now the OM is more than just one night.
Well, that's the plan. We did do one showcase, but hopefully we'll kind of do a few more nights and progression spots and paid gigs. That's the idea, hopefully.
So how did that night go then?
Well, the OM showcase?
Yeah.
So in November, the day before my birthday, I did like a paid bigger night in this community centre, Whittington Park Community Association, which is just down the road from me. And it was amazing. It was great. It was nerve-wracking, like, beforehand. I hadn't sold any tickets. Nothing was going. Oh man, it was brutal. And a few days beforehand, I'd been advertising on Instagram for like a month. Yeah. No one bought a ticket. Somehow it came together. Most people bought tickets, some people on the door. And it was a bit of a mess at the start. Like the person who was the videographer she turned up late, and the lights that I'd got just didn't work properly. You know, I didn't check them. It was just all behind. It was a bit of it was shambles, really.
Yeah.
But once it got started, you know, things just kind of went off. You know, I was emceeing maybe the first 2 acts. I wasn't great. I was just still a bit anxious maybe. But once I'd relaxed, once the first 2 acts had went on, people were having a good time. I was just kind of relaxing. I was just right into it. Yeah, for sure. It was great. Yeah, unbelievable.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And you ended up with pretty much a full room.
Yeah. Packed. Packed. It was packed. I don't even know where they came from.
I was going to say, you're probably like, how?
No
how
clue.
you
Just
here?
people, just turning up. These young fucking youths bringing their chairs in, and I made a joke about that. And it was just, there was a lot of people that I knew. A few actually, not loads and loads, but a few. There were people from the community centre. There was a whole bunch of people. Because the reason why I picked this community centre was because they've got like this newsletter for like 900 people.
Oh, okay.
I thought more would come out. They didn't.
Yeah.
Me and Dan Cohen went flying around a couple of days beforehand. So it was a mismatch of all sorts of stuff. But at the end of the day, the idea was, I just felt like if I could get people in a room, I could do a good job.
Yeah.
And, I knew the acts I was getting on. I know, all strong. And, it was just great, really. And encouraging to try and do a little bit more with it, to be honest.
So what's the plans for that for the rest of 25 then?
Well, I've got a meeting with this community centre. This is all boring stuff, but I've got a meeting with the community centre next week. Just figure out, because they want to kind of have it, but not where I don't have to pay just the full price just to book it out.
Yeah.
And do it as a regular thing. And, from gigging outside of London, right, I just realised that a lot of these places, these regions, these areas, like in Norfolk, they go to community centres and they just build a night in and around that.
Yeah.
And I don't think London has a lot of that. I didn't think it had any, to be honest. And, hard to progress. It goes from like open mics and then everyone's trying to get in up the creek and, Comedy Store. And not all of us have the good fortune of getting on those places, and sometimes are told outrightly. But I don't know. Seeing it, I'm from Islington, right, where it is, where everything's based. And I know that you're not competing. People don't do it because they feel like they're competing with the big clubs. But London's massive, and it's like regions in and of itself, and it is much more difficult than doing it out in the middle of nowhere where they've literally got nothing going on.
Yeah.
Right, except like local fights and incest. But
you spent far too much time in Norfolk.
I tell you what, I do love it. They're a great area, great people. All 3 of them. But yeah, I just thought, especially in Islington, there's a lot of art, there's a lot of people. I just feel like I could take that philosophy there as well.
Yeah.
And do you know what? It's funny, when I started thinking about that last year, I ended up getting a spot at Dulwich Hamlet comedy, which is, I went there and it was the only place I went, and I was like, oh my God, this is exactly what I've been thinking.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable. And the guy that runs it, Matt, who, really great guy. I'm going to hopefully talk to him about kind of what he's done over the last 4 years. But it's an amazing night, and like all built around the community.
Yeah. He
sells out his nights. It's one a month. He'll sell out tickets in about 4 minutes, and it's like 100 plus. And it's just that sort of stuff. There's Glasseye, Ipswich. You got a strong newsletter, strong community.
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing I've been driving with the OM since the start. And I just think that's kind of what I want to do with it. A lot of people want to make these fantastic nights, but they don't really know how.
No.
And you're not going to get people like, the people that go to the Comedy Store aren't going to be people that are going to go to your nights, especially if you've only been in it for a year and a half, 2 years. Yeah. These are long established nights. But you don't even have to compete with them anyway, because you could just still do it in your local area. And that's kind of the philosophy.
Cool. So hopefully we'll see a few more OM showcases coming out in 25 with some decent acts on it.
Yeah, definitely the acts. I think we can get some good acts. I don't think that's a problem, because, a lot of what I've realised doing it is that there are comics that will say no, but there's a lot of comics. You just tell them a time and a price, they'll come out.
Yeah.
People just looking for stage time.
Yeah, very true. So what about your own kind of journey then? We've touched on Norfolk and stuff. So you have started venturing far more outside of the London area for gigs.
Yeah.
How have you found doing that kind of stuff?
I mean, amazing, I guess, really, if you look at it. I think for anyone that isn't getting many spots in London, I'd recommend once you kind of have a baseline understanding of what you're doing in terms of just like a set in and of itself.
Yeah.
Gigging outside London, they are they are just a little bit more receptive to all different types of, funnily enough, a bit more diversity actually with comedy.
Yeah.
I'd go to some of these places, especially when I first went out. I was really interested to see how people would receive what I do and how I am, because I know that in London it's not always received amazingly, certainly, because of the racial stuff. But I mean, whatever, I'm black. What can I say? It's not racial, it's me.
Yeah.
But it was unbelievable, man. I'd be going to some of these places that are just like super Daily Mail readers, just like, all of that, loving it.
It's
little
weird, isn't
white
it?
women just fucking eating it up, and these blokes, Well, I've been to working men's clubs. They absolutely lap it up,
It's not what you expect at all.
I mean, I'm pretty open-minded. I try not to. Funnily enough, I try not, even though I do judge people quite strongly, and I'm quick to judge.
Yeah,
I do. Even though I'm judging you in a sense that I'm trying to figure out who you are quite quickly. I'm pretty open-minded, especially at a comedy night, because the idea, at least for me, the idea is that it don't matter what you are. Like, if you're just there to have a good time and you like my jokes, then that's it.
Yeah,
there really isn't much else to it. If anyone tries to act like it's more than that, I just think they're overblowing it. It's stand-up comedy. It's not like, we're not changing lives here.
Yeah, I sometimes, I don't know if this is accurate or not, but sometimes I find London's a very sensitive crowd.
Yeah.
To things that are outside the norm, or not old school comedy, but I find that some of the stuff you can say outside of London has more of an effect than the stuff inside of London. Inside of London, some people, they can feel uncomfortable quicker.
Yeah.
Rather than some outside London. I don't know if it's the fact that inside London you've got a plethora of comedy going on.
Yeah.
But outside of London you don't have that. So they lap up anything they can get hold of.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's some of that.
I think we might be a little bit victim to kind of watching or hearing certain types of comedy from comedians, maybe not necessarily be good enough to say it. I think they just need a little bit more refinement, or something that isn't as aggressive as it may sound. I think outside London, there's a bit more scope to just say it how it is, or closer to how it is. Whereas in London, you've really got to figure out a better way of saying certain stuff.
Yeah.
And actually, I think sometimes what you find is that then it just welcomes everyone rather than just some. And, a lot of what I've learned this year from, I'm from London, but I'm working my way out to in. And I've gotten a few gigs in London now in the back end of last year. So it is kind of happening a little bit. But, because I've been to some places in London and I'm seeing more established comics that are saying things. They're saying whatever they like for the most part. I don't know if it's necessarily you can't say things or people are sensitive. Maybe they're just smarter. Maybe that's it. Everyone says Londoners are fucking assholes. We're just smarter than everyone else. That's what it is. It's just, you just can't say, I've got a big black dick, and everyone's, that's funny.
Yeah.
You got to talk about why it's great you've got a big black dick, in a bit more refined way.
One day.
Yeah, one day. Yeah. Not if you keep chopping it off. Yeah.
But so you've been getting longer and longer spots as well.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
So I've seen a few near on 15-minute kind of stuff.
Yeah. Starting to break into 15 minutes.
Yeah. I think there's quite a small jump between 5 and a 7.
Yeah.
Because most 5s they tend to overrun anyway, so they always hit the 7s. But then there's a bigger jump from 7 to a 10. Then I can always imagine it's even more to go from that 10 to a 15, or have you found that part quite easy?
I think getting to the first 10 was probably the toughest for sure. Getting there, because it's not necessarily a case of just what material you've got. I think the audience you can't do the same stuff. The longer and longer you get, you've really got to learn how to actually fill that time in a way that doesn't exhaust the audience.
Yeah.
In a 5-minute set, you can go boom, 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 boom. 10 is kind of still some of the same, maybe a little bit less, and you can really pack in a 10. Since I've started doing 15s, you have to have a bit more brevity around what you're saying and a bit more space. But certainly with transitions, you can't. It's hard to, at least for me, maybe when you're better, but it's hard to machine gun. I can do a 10 and I could do it at all different paces. I'm hungry. I don't know if you've seen me do it all different types, but it can be all different types of ways.
Yeah.
Whereas, now I'm still figuring out 15s and then opening with 15s and stuff like that. It's a little bit different. Yeah, you have a bit more time. It's really good. It's actually much better than you just don't say anything. You just stand there and just been like,
Yeah, that's one thing I found in the last year, since with my minimal amount of progression, a 5 always for me now always feels rushed.
Yeah.
And a 10, a 7 or a 10 I feel much more relaxed before I go on, because I know I've got time.
Yeah.
I know I've got time to breathe. I know I can let jokes sit, and I know I can do other things with it as well.
Yeah.
And you've got the opportunity to like make the comments at the start of the set about what's been going on in the previous things, thanking
Get 'em in
people.
place, yeah.
And being part of the room. Whereas on a 5, it's very much, yep, cheers, thanks, let's go.
Yeah.
And there's always that thing is that I think with the 5, a lot of people write for a 5 as if they're doing 5 minutes of talking rather than a 5-minute stand-up.
Yeah.
And I've been so guilty of that. Is you've got the 5, and if you create a set like I created at the start, you create a set which has a punchline at the end, and then you still feel like you're running out of time, so you just speed up, and you've completely lost emphasis, pace, and you hit the punchline and nothing because you've rushed everything before it, and you've kind of ruined it. But with a 10, you kind of go in and go, But I went to that thinking, mate, what if I get to like 7 or 8 and I'm done?
Yeah.
Because I still had the mindset that I'm machine gunning through a whole set.
Yeah.
And not letting things breathe and not letting things wait. But then when you get to that point and you go, I can. You make that. The 7, in fact, can be a 10 if you play it right.
Yeah, but yeah, exactly. I mean, my 7 and 10 used to be pretty much the same thing with 2 or 3 more jokes in it, right?
Yeah.
But at least for me, I think it's in terms of, it works out like how much you can manage and what you're comfortable with. Because when you do it enough, like I've done it enough now where I've got enough material that I don't have to worry about whether I can fill a 10 or not.
Yeah.
And so that seems to be relatively easy now. When it comes to new material, I feel like I can only do 7 minutes of brand new material. You know, last year, at the beginning of last year, I was at a gig and, you know, it was the first time I'd seen this comic called Quincy. It was the first time I did a gig outside of London, one of the first few paid gig. Well, I was doing an open spot. This guy's like 20 plus years in it. You know, he's headlining 20 minutes, right?
Yeah.
All of it brand new. All of it.
Yeah.
And and funny as well. I could not stop laughing, but it was just hilarious because he can manage that.
Yeah.
He's been doing it so long, he can manage that because he can do all sorts of stuff. He's got the artillery behind him. He knows that even if he forgets his new stuff or he wants to go somewhere, he's probably got material in the back he can use anyway. That gives you that level of confidence and feels okay. That's why, like, I try not to push too far ahead. You know, if you're worried about doing a 20-minute spot after doing that the first few times, then you probably haven't got enough material.
Yeah.
You haven't got enough. Stop pushing too far forward. I'm playing to the... I mean, I did have this recent thought that maybe I can be a little bit more aggressive in terms of the minutes. I'm being a bit too conservative here. But, you know, I'm not going to do more than 20 probably at this point this year. Yeah. At any point, really. I can't see that happening. And I don't even know if I'd want to, because last year the aim was just to do 10 spots. And I got very... Well, I'm like Billy Big Bollocks here. I got very competent at it. You know, what do you? I don't know. You've seen me for a few years now. You saw me last year. What is there anything that you see or have seen or noticed? Or
I've seen.
You've always liked me, so I don't know if that's a. I feel like it's reasonable to say that you've rated me as a comic.
Yes.
For a bit, I don't know.
I think watching you do stuff on stage, even just watching clips and stuff, I think you can see how comfort levels have come into things and confidence levels have grown, because I've seen bits where your best bits are when you play with the audience and you shock the audience. And I think those are the bits that elevate everything else. So you've got your I don't want to say standard material, but you've got your main material.
I have got, that's my material. It's my standard. It's the thing I work on.
I still will always say is when you did The Mutual Friend in November, that was the best opening to a comedy set I've ever seen. And
I did not pay him to say that.
Yeah, and I don't even mean like an open mic level. I mean professional whatever, because that room was, you had them in the palm of your hands within, I don't know, not even 3 seconds.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, that was, if we want to talk about kind of milestones or anything from last year, that was easily the best gig I've done, probably up to this point, certainly last year. You know, it was what I felt to be, it was just 10 minutes of just, right, everything that I'd been working on, not only from a material standpoint, because I think the jokes were hitting, dealing with what was quite an involved audience, to say the least.
But that's the thing, is the dealing with that, when that kind of thing happens, in my head, that throws me off.
Yeah.
And I've then lost, you do that whole thing of, where was I again?
Yeah.
Even if you don't say it out loud, your brain and your eyes have basically said, I've lost exactly where I am. But you didn't have that moment. You just you took the piss out of the Tracy's or whatever else, and then just moved on.
Yeah, well, with that, sorry, it's like, but that's because again, I've not done more than what I'm able to do. So I've said that 10 minutes so much that last year that I couldn't forget it even if I tried.
Yeah.
No matter how high I could be, like I would still get it out of my mouth. I just know it that well, and I know where I want to go. And then dealing with her, I mean, you know, there's an element probably of just like a natural personality to be able to do that. But I've also been in that situation a number of times now, and I've tried a lot. I mean, you can say stuff and it not work.
Yeah.
The thing that was interesting about that, and I will say, it's no offense to anyone that was on it beforehand. You know, I was the fourth one that was on, and they were getting there. But you know, I think every act before me had called the Tracys and someone a cunt. Right? Or they were really, really, and for the audience there today, that day it worked, and that's fine, but it would not work like that everywhere. So in terms of how I approached it, it was to be a little bit, you can say the exact same thing, but in a gentler way. And I was just like, you know, I'm trying to be nice to you, but you're making it really hard.
That was one of the lines that you came out with.
Yeah.
And there's so many lines on that. I still say, please go back to around early December on YouTube for Chris's channel and just go and watch
The
the
vlog
set.
108. Someone messaged me the other day about it.
Absolutely bonkers.
Yeah.
It's in context as well, is like you say, the acts that were on before you were all really good and they all did really well. But the one before you was...
The man that's looking down at us right now.
was aggressive at one point. And he realised as soon as he'd done it, he maybe got a little bit too much. But I've looked it back and it's not as bad as we imagine it.
I mean, it's different in the room for sure. When, you know, I'm not, I don't know what the word is, like churlish or just shy or whatever, but even I thought, oh, that's a bit much. He just
you broke the ice really well but the first thing, one of the first things you said, I remember what it was.
Yeah, well, yeah. Well, the funny thing about that, the start of it, which was an interesting one, I showed my friend about it. Now, in that, what is it, like 8 to 10 seconds start or something? You know, there's a lot that's going on there, because when you said pick a song, you know, at the OM, the song that I come on to is a Notorious B.I.G., right? And I love it. I think it really sets, especially, it is my walk-on music. Like, it just sets the tone for what you're about to see in a lot of ways, right? Especially because the name that, I mean, not to be big-headed, but like, you know, I'm trying to be confident, notorious, and just saying it out there. You're big on walk-on music, isn't it?
Yes.
So I thought when I'd picked that, I'd maybe, you know, you start thinking about, all right, what can I say? What can I talk about? And the first thing I was thinking was, do you think they just put that song on to get you ready for a black guy?
Yeah.
So from that line on, right, I have no clue what's going to go. I don't know how they're going to respond. You've got no idea. It's one of those things where I really can't, sorry, I'm just going to digress here. I can't stand it when a non-comic or person, even a comic, right, you start off a set trying to ad-lib and you say something and it doesn't work. And they're like, why did you say that? Because I'm trying. What else am I, you know what I mean? And sometimes it don't work. But when you do it enough, you can, you know, you start to get an idea of what works for you and what you can do. When I'm sitting in the side, I'm thinking, all right, are there other things? Things are going on. It's going crazy. All these interactions. What can I talk about? But I just went on with the music, said that line, and then just started rambling, right? And then I just randomly just said, I picked the song, I'll be honest, because they were laughing, innit? Yeah. And then they laughed again, so I just thought I'd improvise and then say, you know, because I wanted you to get ready for a black guy and, you know, did the whole, I'll give me your fucking money. And it just worked. It was just like pop, pop, pop. Yeah. Wasn't it? Yeah.
But it was the line after, I think the line after that was the one that really had it for me, though. Was out of all the people in this room, who thought I would be the last one to go to prison?
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Yeah. Out of the foot lineup, I'd be the last one to go to prison. Yeah.
And it was just, again, it was the pop, pop, pop. And then after that kind of happens, it's really hard, I think, for when you've got the crowd so much on your side, it's really hard to fuck up. Yeah. You've basically got them and you can say whatever you want and they will love it.
Yeah. And that's basically what happened. Yeah. I mean, when you know, we talk about confidence a lot, and I know sometimes you have, you know, you battle with the, you know, when you was at backyard and your heart's pounding, you're looking at it, you know. Yeah. Confidence is it's so important with it to a certain degree, because it's not confidence even, it's just figuring out how to be as comfortable as possible. Yeah. Because if you're comfortable, then you're recognizing, it's like us in this room together having a conversation, responding. I'm doing my stuff, but I'm not performing. There isn't this wall. Yeah. We're in it together, actually. So then when they're talking, you're like, what are you talking about? especially if you're in the room, then you're probably naturally going to say the sentiment that everyone else is, and that is okay, even if it is fucking shut up.
Yeah.
Right. But some people, audiences are much nicer, so they probably want you to say, could you just stop?
Yeah.
It just depends on where you are. But I don't know. You just try and be as comfortable as possible and practice riffing as well. Like the same thing as with material, you got to practice that to get good at it.
So has 12 months of OM MCing helped with that then?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the first kind of few months of it was getting comfortable MCing.
Yeah.
And I think where I'm at now, and it's one of the reasons why I want to kind of broaden it out a bit, is that especially at the open mic, at the Sunday one, I think that, it can be really well for me as an MC as well. And that's because I'm just being as natural as possible. That's just me just doing my thing. People come and say, that's just like, my mates will say, that's just like you just doing, that's just you up there. And so what it's made me, now what I use it as is a point of reflection of like, that's what I want to be like. Funny enough, I want to be like me at the OM.
Yeah.
That's my aim at the moment.
Yeah, I completely appreciate everything when you say things like that. Is that the type of comic you want to be is there's a whole thing about modelling yourself. If you think you're funny, are you the guy that can hold court in a pub with your friends and have a laugh and people think, oh, he's the funny one?
Yeah.
I want to be that person, but I want to be that person that can riff and stuff.
Yeah.
On a stage, and I think that's the hardest transition.
Yeah,
because you realise that you're in that comfort area with everybody else that you know.
Yeah,
you can say whatever you want, but when you're on stage, the moment you start telling jokes and you start getting blank faces, and your brain's just gone.
Yeah,
I want to be. I want to be naturally funny. I think we all are naturally funny. It's just finding that.
I don't know which open mics you'd be going to,
but it's getting that out as well.
Yeah,
getting it out there.
I think it depends on who you are to a certain degree. I mean, I was being naturally funny, or whatever that means, to a certain degree, and that's not to say dismiss you. It's like people say that, especially when in the context of stand up, because I don't think you need to be naturally funny. I don't think that's part of it. I think it helps depending on the type of comic you want to be, right? Because and I think the reason why I can get so comfortable is that I was that guy. Like I used to be that guy as school and like at uni, going out to parties. If I come out, people liked. I loved going out and just being like the center of attention and joking and things like that. And I never really tried to. It just kind of just happened to a certain degree. I always went in with that mentality. Now that could be dangerous because there's loads of people that say, "Oh, I'm the funny guy at fucking work or at my mates. I can do stand up." I hope I'm not delusional. And at this point, it's been working out all right to some degree. I think I have a little bit of self-awareness because for as well as it can go, I've had some horrific gigs as well. So it's not like it can work out,
Yeah, I guess it's being able to get over those, understanding as well why that gig didn't go so well. And if you know why that gig didn't go well, then it puts you in good stead because you're still constantly learning.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I record everything, and I know comics that have been doing it as long as I have, still don't record themselves and look at it. And I just think that if you're at least audio and at least audio record yourself, if you're going to do a video, even if you do it like once a month, once every so often, just to see where you're at. But I think use the technology today, record yourself. From just doing the vlog alone, I think that's really given me a bump up because I watch everything and I watch all the good gigs more than once. I mean, I cannot tell you how many times I watched that Stevenage gig this week. I watch it all the time, because if there's a good one, then why not? Especially for your own confidence. Like, it's not too self-absorbed looking at it being like, I look fat. Maybe I do look fat, but I was fucking funny,
But you're also quite honest as well, aren't you? In that there was one vlog, I can't remember when it was, maybe around September, October time.
Yeah.
And you put it up and you were just like, I'm putting it up, but I don't really want to put it up.
Yeah, what one was that? I can't remember.
Can't remember now.
Yeah, but I remember you saying.
And I guess I'm quite an avid viewer of it. So I remember watching it going, oh dear.
Yeah.
That wasn't good. But I don't know, it's weird, that whole, it's a different room and stuff like that. You get into that mindset of those jokes worked before and all of that. And I don't know how I don't know about you over the last year or even 2 years, however long it's been in total, is like you have a crisis of confidence at times.
Yeah. I don't know if there's many comics that I know that enjoy it as much as I do. And I don't have many low moments in regards to that. There are battles with it. I can at this point rationalize it to the point that I've done all right as much. I've done well enough to know that sometimes it just isn't my night.
Yeah.
And you can kind of bow down to that. Where I get disappointed myself is that when I don't take the opportunities that are there, or I make some of the wrong decisions in terms of opportunities.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's because I'm not comfortable. That might be because I've just not read the room right. It's those types of things that really bother me, if anything. Saying the same jokes in one room versus another, I don't know how. If you've done the open mic circuit for longer than 6 months, you really need to get over that. I've got to be honest, because surely that will show you that it's just pot luck sometimes.
Yeah.
And that's where you learn to embrace it. I mean, that's what's been great about doing these gigs outside of London. I'm going into these different rooms. I haven't got a clue what the hell is about to happen. I'll do anything, bruv. And so I'm traveling to these places, and sometimes you turn up and you're like, what have I done? I got a £50, 15 middle spot first night in this pub, about an hour and a half, 2 hours drive away. So the marker should say this is going to be a decent night. The headliner, Marcus Birdman, right? Legitimate comic. The opener is a guy I know, professional opener, like I've seen him around, David Sonos. This should be a good night. It was like 8 people there. They've done nothing for it.
Yeah.
Right? Where then there's other gigs where they'll just post on Comedy Collective or whatever, £10 open spot location, like barely anything, no pub. You go there and I'm like, this is 150 people. The fuck is, they've barely advertised this.
Yeah.
Because this is a night that's built on the culture of what they do. But I digress there. But no, each night is so different. Yeah. And that's not the point.
The bad one was, I think it was in Essex, in a bar or restaurant with round tables.
Yeah, I thought you were talking about that one, yeah.
That was the one.
That's the worst gig I've ever done, for sure. Yeah, it's the most I've been paid. Yeah, was a tough one.
It was quite, you gave quite a frank and honest opinion when you came out and did your little piece to camera, though.
Well, why have I got to be... This is part of the problem. Why have I got to be so coy about it?
Oh, no. But what I mean is a lot of people would shy away and just not bother putting that out there.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I agree with you. Why would you think? Like, why are people getting so self-conscious about it? I personally don't understand.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
No,
you think that we're all that good, that only your good stuff's going to be out there.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, when people come out and see you and you're not as good as what you've advertised, then what? They're not going to be repeat visitors.
Yeah.
You want people that, if you're going to think about it in a business sense, especially from an audience standpoint, you want people that are going to come back again and again and again.
Yeah.
Not this bloody burning down sale, one time shop only, come here. We're selling everything. We are selling everything. Cheap price, we're great. And then, and then they come and see it and you're like, this is dog shit.
Yeah. But how have you found it as well, like performing with some famous in the comedy circuit?
Yeah,
names?
I have. Yeah.
I'm a big fan of like Ian Stone, and you're like, oh yeah, I was on the bill with Ian Stone. He gave me a lift back to London. Just like, even that part of getting the lift back to London, if you can tap into that brain, just for an hour and a half, what it is, if he's willing to give it, that must be so valuable.
Yeah, I mean, that's been the problem is I don't know many people. I knew Ian Stone briefly, like not briefly, but a bit, right? Yeah. And Mark Thomas, Mark Thomas, know. God, I didn't know who the hell he was. And you Google him afterwards, and the people you just know by the way the people are around him, talking to him. When I started doing the open spots and getting on some of these pro gigs, if I can stay at a gig, I'll watch it, right? Especially with a headliner, because I remember being at this one in Upminster, one of the first times I've done a 10-minute spot in a Brewdog, and there's a comic called Stephen Carlin. Do you know him?
Yes. He's
probably one of the better unknown comedians on the circuit. A lot of big comics, well-known comics, will always talk to him as being one of the best out there. And he's a lovely guy, very interesting, not much of a talker, but really nice. And we did this gig, and I did okay, probably not really looking back. It really wasn't great. And then he came on, and it was a shit room, or in theory.
Yeah.
Right? MC wasn't doing well. Opener didn't do well. I did less well.
Yeah.
The other middle guy, not great. He came on and just tore him up.
Yeah.
He's been doing comedy for like 30 years.
When you see somebody like that can, you think everybody's doomed.
Yeah.
And then somebody just comes on and just flips
everything. I remember
everything.
vividly thinking, because I didn't really know him that well at the time. I remember vividly thinking, I wonder how this is going to work.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so vivid in my mind. I wonder if he can do it. This is the first time I've been at a pro gig, 20-minute headliner out of the off the open mic circuit. I wonder how this guy's going to do. And he murdered.
Yeah.
just outright murdered. He probably wouldn't have thought so, but in my opinion, he did. And so it's not even just a conversation, because actually what I found with talking to him can sometimes be, for me personally, a bit of a challenge because they're too far away.
Yeah.
It's the good thing about doing the open mic podcast, and this is a platform,
Yeah.
is that it's very close to what people who are going to listen to and start doing stand-up will know. So the advice is, I feel like I could give advice because I'm only 2-3 years in, so I'm not that far.
Yeah.
They were saying things like, they say things about, having your own voice and saying it how you want and this and that and the other. And that is absolutely true. You've got to earn the right to do that. You've got to learn the skills, get the experience. You can't just be someone 5-10 gigs in, start saying the N-words. Figure out a way,
Yeah, but I'd love to be able to spend some time just to sit down with some comics that you admire, and you look at, even not the ones that are like Ian Stone he's obviously he's a comic by trade and stuff like that, but he's not everywhere on TV. He's not selling out arenas and stuff like that. But you watch some of his clips that come out, and I know that some of them are little clips, but I've even seen like an Ian Stone full-on hour show. Yeah, and you just like, it looked completely off the cuff. The whole thing looks completely off the cuff. Yeah. He was joking about stuff that, if you know Ian Stone, he's a massive Arsenal fan. Yeah. And he was talking about, do you think Saka's going to be okay in this, like that, to the audience? And you're just thinking, how's this kind of...
Well, he did, funny enough, when we was talking, he spoke specifically around that. He wanted to get to that conversational style. Yeah. And that's basically what he tries to do. He goes up there, talks, and some comics call it finding the funny. Yeah. And if you find the funny, then you could, just through talking and just banking on, these are the words that he was saying, banking on kind of what you know and what you do. Yeah. Then it kind of comes out like that. And, that is great advice for someone that's been doing it for as long as he has. Yeah. Someone that's been, so I've been doing it now. Last year was the first year I thought, now I'm doing stand-up, right? I've still got a day job. I'm doing open mics. I get paid £10-20 here a couple of times. Yeah. But I'm doing stand-up. I'm going out. I'm doing well. I'm murdering. Now, I've been thinking this year, it is about figuring out my voice. I've been thinking out how to navigate an open mic, how to actually stand up and do stand-up, figure out maybe joke writing to a certain degree. But now it's literally, all right, now I'm doing stand-up comedy. I think some people do stand-up and some people are stand-up comedians, and I want to be a stand-up comic.
Yeah. Yeah, I get what you mean. It's almost like Sunday league football to proper paid professional football. Yeah. You've got that. Everybody can play football. Everybody can stand up on stage and tell a joke. Yeah. But can you do it consistently in front of a crowd that wants to see you all the time, wants to laugh all the time, welcomes you in? Yeah. Rather than just... Because I imagine somebody like, keep saying it, Ian Stone, when he's talking to people in the audience, on the open mic circuit, if you've got a smaller crowd, it's really hard because you don't know if you're going to get any reception from people. But when you've got a room of 200 people, somebody's going to answer. And when that person answers, you're in. Yeah. But if you're in front of 10 people and they're like, just make us laugh.
But then when you're in front of 10 people, it don't matter. Yeah. There is literally nothing at risk here. Yeah. Because you can't do what you do in front of 10 people. I think about a lot about earning the right and, earning the right to say what you want to say, earning the right to perform in front of people. But part of practicing is I'm waiting for the right opportunity to get in front of the right people and make the most of it. The reason why that Stevenage gig was so good for me was everything was suited to me in terms of a comic. The audience were on side. Yep. The lineup beforehand was really suitable, which led up to what I needed to do. Being fourth on the bill, great spot. I was amongst friends, Dan. I think I knew everyone on the lineup. Maybe bar one. Yeah. If that, actually, I think I knew everyone. I met Gary, not too long ago. Yeah. So for me, it's just like, all right, I know I've got the material because I've literally spent this entire year just saying that same old shit. And I knew that I could have it. Yeah, yeah. Like, that was what was good about it as well, which, I don't know, I just thought, especially because it's your gig, I was like, if I don't do well in front of you, I don't think you're going to go, you're a shit comic.
No. You've just gone, that's payback for the OM at the start of January.
You love that, isn't it? I fucking hate this black cunt. No, I hope he doesn't do well. Sorry, I keep swearing. You're going to have to edit this. I am black if no one's watching this. Yeah, but that was like, it was so great because it's about waiting for the right opportunity to get in front of the right people. A lot of gigging when you're out there, it's hard. There's a lot of different things you got to navigate just to get that time.
Yeah.
So for me, if I'm going to do all of that, I might as well fucking enjoy it if I can try my best. Getting conscious about what you're trying to do from an artistic standpoint, that's the barricade. Because then if you talk about being a stand-up comic from a craft, from an art, whatever you want to frame it, that's where you do your work. You can't do it indoors. You can do obviously write, but for me, I can only really do it on stage. And so I'm just going to enjoy that. And, you know, I plot my gigs. You know, I make sure that I'll get a certain amount here, there. I'm not trying to overexpose myself to ones that I can't do loads of open spots and be like, let me do all of those, because I'm like, I won't have the gas for that. I've got to earn that. I've got to earn that stamina. I need a couple open mics where I can just, you know, boost my ego and have a little bit of fun and be like, you know, you're 2-3 years in an open mic. You're fucking top dog.
Yeah.
You know, people are like, oh, how long have you been doing it? 2 years.
Yeah.
Fucking hell.
Yeah.
You know?
But the only problem is they go, how long have you been doing it? 5 years. And you're like, you're fucking still doing this?
Yeah.
Well,
well, that's weird, isn't it? You know, I guess it's easy for me to say being, you know, almost 3 years in, but, you know, one of the things last year, I remember asking this comic, I like to ask comics how long they've been doing it for. And one of the interesting things is that different comics will answer it in different ways, and you can tell who enjoys it or not.
Yeah.
You know, you get some of these people like Mark Thomas and be like, oh, you know, I've been doing it a long time. You know, great. And then you see some people and they're like, oh, too long. You know, and I asked this one guy in Ipswich, I won't say his name, but I asked him, oh, how long you been doing stand-up? You're headlining. I'm like, yeah, how long you been doing it? And he goes, oh, too long. I was like, what's too long? And he goes, oh, about 15 years. And I'd said to him, like, if I've been doing it in 15 years' time, I hope I'm not saying it's too long, you know. I hope I'm enjoying it. I love it. I love it so much right now. At this point, it's kind of like how I'd love to, if I am doing this in 15 years' time, that'd be great. Even at this level. Yeah. But, you know, it's just about really, then it just becomes competing against yourself.
Yeah. I've said it a lot recently, and it came up in an episode with Christian Allman. We were talking about, I mean, if you start a new job and you go in and it's a standard office job and you have to read through all those damn SOPs that they give you in front of you and all that training, you're doing that for a week. That's 40 hours.
Yeah.
You equate how many hours you've spent on a stage in stand-up. It's probably not.
Yeah.
Yours is going to be far more than mine. But mine, probably in reality, is probably 1,000 minutes worth.
Yeah.
So that's not that much.
No. And it only is more now because I get longer spots.
Yeah.
But it's, you know, gosh, you got to spend hours just for 5 to 10 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a theory, isn't there, that to be really good at something, you've got to spend 10,000 hours.
Yeah.
And you're like, man, that's you can't do that in stand-up. But a lot of the time is a preparation as well. That's part of the learning. But actually doing that job, I mean, how many minutes does a kid from 8 play football?
Yeah.
And then he makes it as a Premier League footballer at 18 years old.
Yeah.
It's a lot to put in, and understanding that it's not, what am I trying to say, is that you're not going to be an expert after 6 months unless you are a freak of nature.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, it can happen. Sometimes you see people and go, that was phenomenal. How long have you been doing it?
Yeah.
That was my 20th gig. And I'm like, fucking hell.
But I guess that's just people having an aptitude for it to a certain degree.
Yeah.
I think people really need to understand what stand-up is. Sometimes I think people haven't got a clue.
Yeah.
You know, it's something that does take work and does take effort. Because I actually think the reason why people don't take it for granted to a certain degree, you get people that are like, oh, I could never do it. Oh, I could never do it. But the people that actually do it believe that they can do it. But some people believe they can do it because I think it's one of the easiest skills to learn. It is, because it's not like, you know, I've started in my mid-30s and I'm already getting paid for a couple of years' work. It's not really that hard to get paid to do it. It's not that hard to get somewhat good. Everyone could make a joke that's good. I've seen it, right? But that means people also don't understand the kind of work that you've got to put towards it.
Yeah.
You know, once you get to the point where you can actually prove that you've done it, then what is it you're doing with it? And, you know, you speak to different people. I mean, someone told me I was like too disciplined and I'm a bit like, whatever. You know, I approach it with a workman-like mentality. I'm pretty structured around my approach when outside of the stage, as if I would do in training or something like that. And then when it comes to the stage, now I'm just playing. So that all that preparation is just for me to do my thing. Yeah. You know, and kind of go with that. But, you know, you've got to be organized. Like, you've got to be organized. You've got to be particular. For me, every gig has a purpose to a certain degree. Yeah. I'm not gigging for the sake of gigging. Certainly not now, because it's not like it's my living. I ain't got to earn money. It's not like I've got to go and just mail it in.
Yeah.
I've got to go there and make it worth it, especially if I'm traveling like 2.5, 3 hours
Yes.
on a work night.
Yeah. There is that, isn't there? It's all well and good saying I've done 100 gigs, but how many of those 100 gigs were actually worthwhile?
Yeah.
How many if you could knock a certain amount off that and you'd still be where you are?
Yeah.
What have you achieved by those 20 or 30 pieces of shit? As long as you've learned something, I think, from every single one, and you can look back and reflect and go, okay, that didn't work because X, Y, and Z, or I wasn't on top form, whatever. That if you can be honest with yourself like that, then make every gig count, whether it's a blinding gig or a shite gig.
But I think it's important for especially comics that do the open mic for like a year onwards and want to actually progress. If you're not getting any spots in London, if you're not getting it close to home, you've got to travel. Yeah. And if you are minded where you want to get better at doing it, I promise you it will be worth it.
Yeah.
You know, someone gave me that advice. Jake Steers, you know, a couple of years ago, he was like, when I started gigging outside of London, and for me, it's been an absolute godsend. Well, if I'm half decent or not, I don't know. But at least, it's been great. And I know a couple of comics recently that have started going outside London, Ollie Miller, and your game just goes to another level.
Yeah.
And then you can start working your way back in because no one's got a divine right to getting on spots. You know, everyone acts like why have I got to do this? Why have I got to do that?
Yeah.
We spoke earlier, but did we speak on this about, obviously, well, you said it earlier properly, but the person who said that I wasn't good enough to be on a certain spot.
Yeah.
You know, that was kind of like the beginning of last year. You know, at the time, obviously, I was a bit salty to a certain degree.
Yeah.
But looking back now, it's hard for me not to think that he was right because I'm only better than I was then. The only thing I was doing was compare myself to some of the other acts that he gets on a regular basis. And at that time, they weren't doing that great, in my opinion. Whereas now, I mean, if he said it then, I'd like to think he wouldn't say it now. So I might message again. And if he says it then, I'll just do it again next year.
Yeah.
You know, there are a few people now that recognise me as a comic. And, you know, they put me on. You know, I got offered 2 paid gigs yesterday. That doesn't happen a lot. You know, it's only been happening the last few months. And, you know, it's just, you got to really speculate and get out there and find the people that will like what you're doing. And put you up because it's a whole different thing outside of London.
Yeah, there was an incident. I say an incident makes it sound dramatic.
Murder.
there was somebody we both know. I won't say his name at the moment, but he went up and did a gig in a northern town, just on a midweek thing. Applied for a.
Do I know this story?
You don't know the story. I'll tell you who the person is after. He went up and did this gig for somebody, and it went really well. He's not that far into comedy in terms of time. Straight after that, he's been offered from the promoter. That one said, right, I want to give you paid work for another couple of other gigs.
Yeah.
And it's just because he took the chance.
Yeah. And
he's going to be better for it.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, there's still shit gigs outside London. And the interesting thing is, I got to say, I mean, I'm not one to shit on Northerners or people outside London. I got to say, when they start shitting on the scene in London, I get it. It is bad. I think it's very closed off and it's quite difficult. And sometimes the type of comedy isn't great. But when it comes to bringing gigs, shut your mouth. You know nothing, all right? It's so easy to go out in the middle of nowhere and get loads of people to come out to watch amateur comedy.
Yeah.
Right? So count yourself blessed because we got to come out to you now.
Yeah.
We got to leave the nice London, big smoke. You know what I mean? It takes me fucking forever. You got no transport and I got to come out to you. So just relax. So there's a little bit of a gripe here. You know, I really can't stand this like London hating thing. I get it. But when it comes to open mic and bringers, it's what we have, so we might as well, especially at the beginning. I actually think there's no better way to practice comedy instead of in front of a scary crowd. Yeah, really, it should be just your mates. Eventually, when it's your mates, you know, don't be so self-conscious about it because there's no way to get better outside of performing. There just is no way. Yeah. You're not going to write yourself to the fucking stage. It's just not going to happen. Yeah, there's a performance element that's so important.
Yeah,
yeah.
Getting out there, doing your stuff. If bringers are something that's a necessity in that area that they're in, then play the game. Don't moan about the game. If you're going to moan about it, then just leave the game.
Well, there's the game, and then it's like the business of the game. If you're going to look about it, innit? You know, the game is the stage time. It's what you need to do outside of that to get on stage and then do your thing. Yeah. Don't let all that shit kind of bother you. It is annoying, it can be, and especially if you put yourself out online, there's going to be challenges with that as well. Yeah, but if you want to be, and this is only if you want to be a stand-up comic, if you want to be someone that just does stand-up, do what you like. But if there's anyone that's listening to this that thinks, I just want to tell good jokes. This is the advice for you, at least from my perspective, because that's all I want. And all I want to do is just perform in front of better crowds so I can have a better time.
Yeah.
Because it's so great when it goes well.
Yeah.
It's great. You know, that we say the one night, Steve, I'd never seen you have a better night than that, if I'm being honest.
No.
And it's fucking awesome, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, coming off that was just
Buzzing.
it took me back to my showcase.
Yeah.
The showcase, for me, if I watched it back now, I'd probably cringe as hell. But I felt like I fucking flew. I did not sleep that night. I was on cloud 9. And then when I did that gig, like you say, everything worked for me that night. And it wasn't like a sympathetic crowd or whatever, but having to repeat starting the set, I don't know how many times it was, but I felt like I embraced it every time because it was a different line every time I was starting. For some reason, I could have said anything and it would have worked because I think, everybody was on side.
But to cut you off, because I think, even though maybe you still have a bit of nerves, when you're relaxed and you're part of the room, you're receptive to it, you know when you can overstep.
Yeah.
And you were doing it and it was working well for it. And, one of the things I've been saying a lot lately is that, and this is going to sound, if anyone thinks I've sounded big-headed up to this point, you'll think this is the biggest head you've ever heard. But some comics just don't know what it's like to murder. They just don't know what it's like. They've never murdered before, so they don't know what those highs are like.
Yeah.
And then when you get to those highs, that's when you want to try and reach them again.
Yep.
You can have a reasonable crowd and they could be nice. But when you got like Stevenage, I mean, almost everyone murdered, right? I murdered hard. We all fucking smashed it.
Yeah.
Murdered. You murdered, Max murdered, Dan murdered, It was so good. And that's just because the audience was great. But then, you can't then extrapolate that and think, well, every other fucking gig's going to be like that.
Yeah, yeah.
That's when you've got to be realistic about it and think, well, when you've done enough gigs, you can't be too desperate for that. You've got to figure out how to get the most out of what you want. And then, I don't know, for me, I want to say certain things and I've got to bear the brunt of that because it gets quite stressful trying to do new material.
Yeah.
Because I know what I'm trying to get to, but I know that not everyone's going to like it. Yeah. And that's where I put my stress at, not necessarily like whether this actual person liked it or not, because I know I'm talking a bit long here because I'm just going on this tangent, but there's this, what was it? Oh, I've just lost it now. I shouldn't have stopped. I do apologise.
A few moments later.
When you're looking at somebody in the crowd and they're not receptive.
I've got you. Yes, thank you. The unfortunate thing about every gig and why I don't think you can live gig to gig is that, the only thing you can only change something about that bad gig over the long term.
Yeah.
You can't change it from gig to gig. Maybe you could change one line, but certainly all of this stuff is over. I watched a clip of mine from the beginning of the year last year and then when in November, December, and I actually couldn't believe how much it was different than the stuff at the end of the year, at every gig.
Yeah.
Quite frankly. Like, even just repeating, it was just so... I watched every gig afterwards. It's like watching your hair grow over a long period of time, but not noticing it's growing.
Yeah.
Just from gigging alone and just being receptive towards, all right, just incremental changes. Over a year's time, I went from being able to do open spots and do okay and not even okay, actually bombing at some, to I could probably do most 10 spots in most places now. Just thinking about it in that way.
Yeah, that is one of the things, like you said, with what I've seen you do, is when I look back at material, sometimes you see somebody's progression and you don't necessarily, the jokes seem the same.
Yeah.
And I if I watch your stuff, I go, I know you've started with Whole Foods. I know where this is going. But then something feels different. And I don't know necessarily what it is. And it could be a slight change in wording. It could be a pause. It could be the pacing. It could be anything.
Yeah.
But there's something different. I don't analyse everything, but I'm sure
No,
if you
don't
do,
need to.
if you analyse it, you kind of go, I can be quite critical on some of my stuff. And I look back at it and go, start of my set has a fairly good, cadence and pace to it. The middle goes really woolly at times.
Yeah.
But then there's a point where I do a little bit near the end, which has like a nice flow to it. And everything feels like it fits and goes, and you end up doing something that people relate to. You put a silly swear word in there to give you a little bit of emphasis, and then you do the rule of 3, and then you finish off with another silly punchline that people aren't expecting. And that cadence has worked perfectly. Now it's the hardest thing for me is now going back and then making that middle bit less woolly, getting it out on stage. Sometimes when you say like the first line slightly differently and it's not gone quite so well, you're kind of like, have they just not understood what I'm doing and what I'm saying? And if they're not understanding it, am I going to end up having to explain this?
Yeah.
And then the wheels come off.
Yeah. Well, I think that's when it becomes part of the performance.
Mm.
You know, I've like a lot of comics. I've been reading the Adam Bloom book.
Yeah.
And I've been reading it kind of, someone said as he intended it. Like I read portions of it and then I don't read it for months, and then I read bits when I can and work on bits, and then as it goes along. And over Christmas I was reading the thing about persona and style.
Yeah.
And, you know, I've always battled the idea of persona, but one of the things he spoke around was early on in your comedy career, it's not necessarily what you say, but it's how you say it. And what you're trying to practice is your act. So even though you're thinking about things in those terms, what maybe you could also think on top of that, or aside to it, or whatever, is, all right, what am I presenting on stage? It's not necessarily just the words. It's just how you say it. And like you said, the way that I say certain things, my technique, or what I try to be mindful of, is I'm almost like riding on a wave. You know, I'm trying to listen and be perceptive to what the audience is saying. I'm looking out there and I'm seeing what's going on. And then before it starts to dip, then I'm kicking the tin can back up and then we're going again. Or, you know, if it feels like I want to just slow it down a little bit, then you kind of just do that. You know, it's going with whatever suits the room in a lot of ways sometimes. Yeah. Sometimes it's the stage is so far, or the audience is so dark, it's hard to read the room. So you kind of just got to go. That's when I think you have to have strong material. Yeah. Because when all else fails, you can say your jokes and hope for the best. Yeah. But ultimately, you need to think about how you're saying it as well. And that's why you need to get comfortable. Like, you really need to get comfortable to be able to say it and talk coherently and clearly. And, you know, when I'm stressed up there, it is much harder, isn't it? So yeah, I find it sometimes when you're on stage and you come off and you go, that didn't go very well at all. And then sometimes you look back and go, that wasn't as bad as I thought. I've had that a few times where I've literally... times? I've had it loads of times. I mean, that was part of my, sorry to cut you off, but that was part of my kind of working towards just trusting what I was doing. Yeah. Because ultimately it's not as bad as you thought. And sometimes, you know, I thought I did well on Thursday, and I listened back to the clip and I was like, actually, that wasn't even that good. But the room said it was good and I had a great time. So it's hard as well, even though you've got to watch yourself back and listen back, it can be deceptive both ways around. Yeah, yeah. I think somebody said your bad gigs are never as bad as you imagined, and your good gigs are never as good as you imagined. There's always sort of, sometimes I don't know. I've had some pretty good gigs, but I did one where there was probably 15 people in the room, and most of them were the comics. The front row had one natural audience member sat there, and then the next row was empty. I'm kind of like, if I don't impress this one person on the front, then I've pretty much got nothing whatsoever, because I couldn't see any further back, and I'm doing my bits, and some of them are. But thinking, why do you think like that? It's so interesting to me. What? Why do I have to? Contextualize it like that. Do you recognise it as maybe something that isn't necessarily beneficial to you in terms of being up there? In what do you mean? If you're focusing on this one person, you're saying, if I've got them, I've got nothing. If sometimes you get the laughter that's not audible. Yeah. And you could see somebody's face. Yeah. And when you see one person, that becomes your focal point as such. And I had the thing where I was doing the whole set, and I just thought, this is just turd. Yeah. This is just a waste of time. That's not been good whatsoever. And I took the video and I thought to myself, I'm just going to probably delete this. And I know you should never, ever do it. But I'm really bad at looking back at a gig that I thought was really terrible. Why is that bad? That's great. But I looked back at it. I did look back at it. And I went, every joke I said, there was a reaction in the room. It was small. Yeah. But it was still a reaction. Yeah. That's telling me that there is something in what I'm doing. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Rather than, if I'd walked away and never looked at that video again, I'd come back and think, that gig was a complete waste of time. Didn't have fun. And I didn't feel like I had particular fun on the stage, but every joke had something, but I just didn't hear it on the stage, which was strange. Well, maybe because you were panicking around it not working. Yeah. I mean, again, it's like being present on the stage and not getting in your head about it, you know, trying to get to the place. And I'm not saying it's you, I'm saying it's like everyone, like including myself. Because there's sometimes when you're so stressed, you've almost got blinders on. You can't even hear what you're saying. You can't hear what they're doing. Yep. You know, it's blind and you can't remember. You can't see anyone's face. It's just, you're just up there just talking to whatever. Yeah. Sometimes it works out okay and sometimes it doesn't. But I think the aim is to be there, to be in there, live performance. We're not in arenas yet. Yeah. You know, so being able to be next to them and touch them and understand what's going on in the rhythm, I don't know. It adds to what is supposed to be a live performance. It's live action, isn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah.
There's an actual energy in the room that should be palpable, and you should be able to feel it as a comic. But it's hard when you've got those barricades in front, being stressed out, isn't it?
And I think that all comes down to knowing your set inside out.
Yeah.
If you know your set inside out, then those distractions and stuff,
Nothing.
they don't matter.
Yeah.
You can have time to fuck about because you know where you're going straight back in. But when you don't know your stuff, which I'm really guilty of not knowing everything of my stuff.
That's probably because you don't do it consistently.
Yeah,
enough,
yeah.
You know, you gig 3-4 times a week and you say the same old shit. How could you not remember?
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? So
But when you're doing it once a week or something like that, it's
quite
difficult.
challenging.
And depending on what your ambitions are, if your ambitions are just to have a bit of fun on the stage and just sit at an open mic level for forever and a day, then that's fine.
Do you have any expectations for this, for your stand-up? I know you're doing an open mic podcast, and which has been fantastic. And but in terms of like stand-up comedy, do you have any expectations for yourself?
Not really.
I mean, it could be low. I don't have high for myself, but
I would love to get to the point.
Just get in the mix.
I'd love to get to the point where I'm being asked to perform at other people's gigs without me having to say, "Hey, can I do it?" I'd like somebody to come and say, we'd really love to see your stuff. Really like you to come along. The money side of things has never been a driver for me. When I started this, my ambition was, I'm doing one gig. That's it. I've got nothing to go further with. But then I did the gig and I was like, I want to do more. I want to do more. I'd love to get some regular, when I say regular, I mean like once a month, if that, paid work.
Yeah.
10, 15 spots. Lovely. If I gave myself a lofty ambition, I would love to do a fringe show, but in Brighton, not in Edinburgh. I'm not particularly interested in going to Edinburgh because I think the costs and everything that come with that place dwarf the potential of having fun with it.
100%.
So I'd love to do a Brighton show, but as a split bill with somebody. And I have a full-on idea for a show that I think would work quite well. And it would allow two people to express their funny side, but then also do a bit of joint stuff. That would be the ambition. I was hoping that would happen in 25, but I don't think that's going to be a 25. That may be a 26 ambition, to actually get something in place where if I can get more regular 10 spots throughout this year, I can hone a craft to actually produce a stand-up that I can start extending to 15 and 20.
Yeah.
Because my idea behind a fringe show is to have two guys, or a guy and a girl, you break it into 3 sections. So 15, 20 minutes each, doing your funny bits, but then you do a bit together as well. And so you don't have to go in with going, I've got half an hour or 45 minutes of material. You've got 15, 20 minutes of fun stuff people can enjoy, and then you have an interactive part with everybody else.
Yeah. Well, will you gig more then?
I'll have to.
Yeah. Because there's no getting around it for anyone that's listening. There's just no getting around regular gigging.
Yeah.
It just has to be. And not only that, right, it's especially if you're doing, because you can only start in places that will give you spots, and that generally is open mics.
Yep.
You've just got to do them, and you've just got to be there for what you're doing, innit? Like, if you're going to these spots, that's how you get better. It's just gigging. Gig wherever. Get anywhere that will offer you or give you or have you on. You go there, you do your thing, learn from it, and then just go to the next gig. Because even if you're doing shit gigs, you do those 2 or 3 times, you'll learn your material.
Yeah.
Learning your material, you'll be able to get through it quicker.
And that's the thing, is that I realise that's why I think 25 is out of the question for something like that type of show, because it's not. I'm not accomplished enough and haven't done enough homework leading up to this. So if I want to do it, it has to be in 26, which means I have to take 25 a little bit more seriously.
Yeah.
One thing I do want to get in 25 at some point is I want to get a quality video of 10 minutes of solid stand-up that has the crowd laughing and everybody having fun, like the Stevenage one. But the problem with the Stevenage video is there's far too much swearing in it. I watched that back and I'm like, there's words per minute, people say, and there's fucks per minute that went in that.
Can I say something to that? Absolutely appreciate that, what you're saying, because I've obviously swear a lot, and it 100% has stopped me from getting certain spots. But your best clip is still your best clip, and someone will put you on. So do not be afraid to send that clip out. That is your best clip. You send it out regardless. People aren't looking necessarily for, oh, that guy's got great material. They want to see you. They want to see you handle a room.
Yeah.
They want to see you have a good time and actually be able to get laughs.
Yeah.
If you can't send them a clip where you're getting laughs, you know, you said about when we were driving here, and you know, there was a booker who was saying, "Oh, I've got to watch all these clips for this competition he's doing," and these people are sending clips where no one's laughing. Yeah. So don't even worry about that. That's your clip. Don't worry about the swearing. Get them spots. Get better. Get more material. I'm gradually working out all of that stuff that got me there in the first place. Yeah. I'm becoming a little bit more cleaner. I'm trying to limit my swearing. And there's one joke in particular. I mean, I said the word earlier on, you know, where the punchline is black cunt.
Yeah.
You know, that is, I know for a fact that is stopping me from a lot of different things.
Okay.
Even though it bangs,
yeah,
I've just got to figure out how to not use it every time I'm doing well. Because if I'm going well and I use that line, it's always going to slap. If it's not going well, then that joke don't work, because I know they're not on side, and that joke's only for a particular type of people. Yeah. But I certainly want to eliminate that stuff. But use the clip you've got. Yeah, no, that will get you the spots. Trust me.
The thing is it's not in that clip. There is swearing for the sake of swearing, and it's complete. When I watched it back, if one day I may put the whole clip is up, the whole video is up, but I might actually just put like a counter in the corner every time I said the word fuck, because it felt like it got really stupid at one point. Yeah, and those words were having no impact. They were suitable for the room. The room accepted those words. Yeah, but they weren't what I want to come out of that. Yeah, yeah. Because somebody watches that, the first thing, all right, handle the room and all that, but the first thing they're going to see is go fuck, 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 and it's not even just using like one fuck a minute or one fuck a 30 seconds. Yeah. There's a point where I swear, yeah, I've gone for like, I don't know, 20 in 1 minute, and it's just because you were part of the room having fun. Oh, fucking this, fucking that, and you're just like, no. If I didn't say that so many times, it would be so much better. Yeah, but I'd say use the clip until you get a better one. I'd say. Can I ask you this though? Because I've always wondered this and I don't know if it's hopefully it's an okay question to ask. Because I think I gig quite a lot. Some people gig more, some people gig less. What is the big stopgap from like doing more gigs then? Like outside of just, I don't know what your lifestyle is. I don't know what you have. It seems like you do a lot of different things. Yeah. But why do you just not gig more then? It just comes down to the family balance. Have you got kids? Yeah. I did not know that. I know nothing about you. Yeah, I've got. But I mean, the kids are adults. Yeah. Look, they're 20 something. What do they need you for then? No. But it's also, they would like you to leave. Actually, I know that for a fact. When I was 20s, I would like my mum to get out of the house. Family and spending time with the wife and stuff like that. Yeah. You know, it's when one person comes in from work and then the other person leaves. You're just like ships passing in the night. Yeah. And you realise that the comedy's important to me, but it's not as important as other things in my life. Yeah. Me and Max spoke about it, is when you're coming from outside of London, you've got the train ride, you've got the tube ride, and then when you're doing a night, and this is what's really good about the OM, I will say, is that the fact you start early and you finish early, it gives people enough time to get home or go for another drink and spend time with people. But some nights aren't like that. Some nights, you know, even if they're finishing at 9:30, you're like, okay, I've got 9:30, I've got to walk to the tube, I've got a tube, hopefully that's not going to be delayed. And then you're like, is my train actually going to turn up? And then you've got another 20 odd minutes for that. And then it's just a lot of time. What one thing is that I've learned about doing this is like the sheer cost of doing open mic comedy from outside of London is expensive. If I equate a night out, me doing an open mic in London, I'm paying £11 to park a car. I'm paying 20 quid on the train. My tube's probably included in that. I'm going to buy a drink or two. And I might, if I'm usually very early for gigs. Because I know every time you go to the OM, you're already there. Like, yeah, because what I'll do is I'll finish even on a work day, I'll finish work at 5. My brain says, right, I've got to go now. If I sit around the house, there's a chance I might get comfy. Yeah, absolutely. And then I'm like, no, but if I leave at 5, I'll get to the venue for 6. Yeah, half the people aren't even there setting up until 7. Yeah, I guess that's what it is, right? Because I've had a talk today. I talked with my girlfriend who I live with, and we had a conversation around that. This year it's different for me, it seems. I feel like I've been doing stand-up proper. I feel like I'm in the mix now, and now it's kind of like, right, what do I do? And the prospects of spending more time out of the house, because I'm traveling outside now, so now I understand what everyone's talking about to a certain degree. So it's not just someone that's outside of London, but the conversation was around, I want to do this now. I want to spend more time, and I want to be, I'm going to be mindful, obviously, that my time in the house and with you is a certain thing, but
it's certainly trying to move forward with. I'm conscious of that. That's been quite stressful more than the stand-up, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
For me, working everything around stand-up is the issue, not necessarily stand-up itself. And that's kind of, I think, where the difference lies, isn't it? Where, what is it that you want? And I think, my goals have changed over time. And, I certainly understand how big a comic could be.
Yeah.
But certainly even just, not even the scale of it, but if you're just a working comic, you're going to be out late in the evenings regardless.
Yeah, yeah.
And am I prepared to do that? But not only that, is my partner prepared to do that? And I think this year is going to be a real indication of kind of what the next few years are going to be like for me and Holly in terms of our relationship, because I'm going to have to be mindful of that. I'm going to be away more for longer. And, that's the good thing about getting more minutes is you don't have to spend more time around going to gigs. The reason why you've got to spend more time going to gigs is because you've got to earn the right to get more time.
Yeah.
I don't do as many gigs as I used to because I get more time on stage, and that really helps.
Yeah.
So, I would say, like, advice to you from my perspective is that you send that short window trying to get to that goal that you said, which is, I think, very, very good. Because when you get to that point and people offer you gigs, it isn't as hard.
Yeah.
And, say to your missus and to your family, let me just spend a year or two just grinding it out a little bit. Fuck the money, fuck this, fuck that, But that's only if you want to, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Otherwise, people just should enjoy it regardless. Like, if you can get enjoyment of it. There's such an expectation with this. Like, if you're any good at it or you're just trying it, you got to be famous or super successful. If you make people laugh, you're going to be successful. That's the job.
Yeah.
So just start off there.
Yeah.
Start making people laugh. Figure out that, and then you'll probably get somewhere.
Yeah. It's also quite hard because I don't know if you have this. I know a lot of people have this in relationships, is that most of everybody's partners are not comics. They don't get what happens when you do go on stage, enjoy it and want to do it. And comedy becomes all consuming. To the point, where you could be sitting there on the sofa and you're doing that thing where you're watching a film or whatever, and there's something comes into your head about comedy, you pick up the phone, right into the notes, that goes.
Yeah.
And then you realise, hold on a minute, I'm not paying attention to what the situation is now.
Yeah.
But you can't let go of that because that might be a gem later.
I'm quite disciplined,
Yeah?
Yeah, I'm quite disciplined. I mean, again, I don't really need to. The good thing about being someone that writes on stage, you don't really need to think about it too much outside of it. Otherwise, bits and bobs, right? And there's it kind of dips in and out with certain thoughts. I've got this digital notebook though. That's been a game changer because I can note it down there and keep it in order.
Okay.
But once I get the framework, then it's just kind of like, if I've got passing moments, I just think about it. But then if you know your set or you know what you're working on, then for me, really, the journey towards the gig is the only time that I need to think about it because I'm only going to make some subtle changes.
Yeah.
I don't get self-conscious that the same people are going to see me. And also, every gig I could bomb. There's always that danger. It doesn't matter regardless. Any given day, I could eat shit.
Yep.
Any given day. We know that as fact.
Yeah.
So I might as well just, hope for the best.
Hey, sorry for the interruption. Duncan Hart here from episode 37. If you're enjoying this podcast, give it a like, a 5-star rating, and a follow on whatever app you're using right now. Mark will be forever grateful. Now, back to this cracking episode.
So you were guest number 1.
Yeah.
Bit of self-indulgence here. Has anything come from being guest number 1? Have you had feedback? Any whatever?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard to know exactly what comes, isn't it, with like followers and stuff. But I've had a lot of people. I mean, even I think maybe last week or the week before, I had someone messaging me saying that they listened to the first one. And I think it's like testament to kind of what the Open Mic podcast has done. It's just giving people information around what it is to do. And I get a lot from that, and getting the feedback, and just it gives me a bit more reassurance that my way of thinking or what I'm sort of thinking around doing it, maybe there's something to it. And it certainly sounds like, I don't know, there's things to draw from. Like, it assured me that talking about like material and being an actual stand-up and just the grind of it and thinking about the stage.
Yeah.
I think that even if people are messaging and it resonates with them in that way, I don't know, like, it's probably similar to what you get from doing this when people message you and tell you how, I really liked what this person said. What you said here. It's not only like, oh, it's nice that actually people appreciate what you said, because for the most part, like, I'm going to, you do a podcast like this, you think, what the hell did I just say? Or it's been really interesting to know that my general way of thinking around it is something that some people, it's not all, and I don't know who else, but resonates with it because it's weird, man. It's weird doing it, you know.
Yeah, it's a neglected kind of segment of the whole comedy circuit, I think, in terms of from everybody
Open mics.
everybody has the aspirations of being at the top, but those people when they get to the top, they very rarely look backwards.
Yeah, quite.
There's like, oh, I've graduated that part. I'm not looking to then help the next class, if you see what I mean. And having this kind of resource, I think, and I've learned so much from other people, from all the guests that have come on, about where their journey started and how everybody's journey started. And everybody's is different, which is, it sounds really obvious, but how some people got to do this. Like, I distinctly remember, like, the title of your first episode, from the poker table to the performance stage, was that you won a game of poker or whatever, and that gave you the funds to do this.
Yeah.
So that's how it kind of started in a weird kind of way. And then you've got other people that have been accomplished actors and been in Hollywood films that are doing 5-minute spots at comedy shows.
Yeah.
And you're like, on a normal level for any normal human being that's not part of the comedy circuit, they think, what the hell?
Yeah.
But there's something that draws people into this.
Yeah, and it certainly gives you a different angle when you start seeing it from the inside out as well.
Yeah.
You know, doing this and, you know, you go to certain shows and people say, thank you for supporting live comedy. And when you don't see it enough, you know, it could just seem kind of like a bit of a cheesy nothing line. But I'm really starting to believe in the concept that we really need to be a bit more positive about the open mic circuit.
Yeah.
You know, doing this, because I think the same for you. It's an interesting question you asked, like, what's it done for you? Because, you know, it's a checkpoint to make me think about what it is that we're doing. I mean, I certainly think you probably look back on this and, you know, a lot of people give me feedback about my vlogs and what it does in terms of demystifying what the open mic circuit is. And I just think that, like, maybe it does sound corny. Like, we got to invest in it, especially as acts. We can't resent the open mic circuit. You can't look down on it and think that, oh, these people don't know what they're doing. You know, a comic said to me not too long ago, I won't say who it is, but they said, I just don't understand why you put on so many bad acts on at the OM. You know,
That's a bit of a weird thing to say.
Quite. But that's the attitude, isn't it? Like, certainly in London, in other places, I think that's why outside of London it's better to get spots because they're more liberal in terms of putting people on. But you think an open mic circuit is... The reason you put on quote unquote bad acts, I mean, we're all bad.
Well, that's the thing
there's no one that's good when you start. I've not seen that. I've not been present to see someone do their first or second gig and be superb. And if they are, they're only superb for 5 minutes. You know?
But then the thing is, if somebody's giving you a comment about a bad act and they've seen that person do 1 or 2 sets out of 50 or 100, that person might have just had that off day. Everybody has to be encouraged within this circuit because it is harsh.
Yeah.
It can be really harsh. You know, you realise, it depends if you want to take this as a competition or not.
Yeah.
And you look at the people around you and the progression that other people make, and you look at them and go, oh, why aren't I doing that? Why aren't I getting those? Why is that not for me? And you have to kind of put that to one side, even though it's really hard to do.
Yeah.
And understand where you are in this journey.
You know, there's the old saying, comparison is the thief of joy. And I think when you contextualize doing open mic stand up and getting better and practicing in the context of I'm trying to put on a good performance, it's really hard to put those two things together, especially at first when you're practicing, because you're learning. We subject ourselves to so much failure in such a short amount of time. Generally, the process for most people, when you hear all these comments, especially, you know, it could be, I was listening to Nate Bargatze and all these famous comedians that have been doing it for 20, 30 years. They always talk about, I don't know how to write jokes. I still don't know. The process of stand-up is, unless someone else comes up with a more definitive way that's easier than what we're doing, is going out there and subjecting yourself to so much failure that you just pick out the positives and then progress with that. Yeah. Right? We do a 5-minute set, we fail. We fail on every joke that we try. You know, everything that we go up there, if it doesn't work, it is a point of failure. But that doesn't mean you're a failure. No. That doesn't mean you're shit. Yeah. That doesn't mean you're bad, right? That just means that you need to figure out where to find the points of positivity and just keep them. Yeah. You know, some people say, how long did you try a new joke. Well, it depends. I pursue jokes that should not be pursued. I can't work it out.
Yeah.
Right. But then sometimes things work quicker. And, sometimes, the more experience you get with stage time, you just figure out, all right, one, how to get there quicker, but two, this isn't something I could do.
Yeah. Yeah, I've actually got a whole set that I did once and I threw it away straight after because it died.
Bad, yeah? Was it that bad?
I think the set was actually quite good, but
yeah.
But that's probably me being biased. But I've never had the balls to revisit it because it was one of my really, really early ones, and I've never had the balls to go back and think, let's make that better. Let's do something with that.
But that happens though. Like you've probably known my set as well as I do at this point now, back of my hand kind of thing. But I've also, if you watch enough of the vlogs, I also try things. And they're in the set for a little bit. I'm working on something there. I still do try a lot of material. And I think if you are doing it right, there will be more material that is left on the floor than actually what you take with you. Yeah. It'd be impossible because you may get some level of success, but if it's not part of what you're doing with your set, then in terms of being an actual performing stand-up, a stand-up comic, like you need to have more that is rubbish and that you've thrown away than not, I think. Especially if you want to be top tier. When you get to the point where you're practicing and you're just like, you're good enough on stage, and I'm not good. I think I've progressed to the point where I'm just comfortable on stage. Now, if you put me in front of like 5,000 people, maybe it might be something a bit different. But certainly where I'm at, I could probably, if there's like 100 people, it wouldn't be that intimidating.
No.
50 people, that's like an open mic again to a certain degree. Maybe certain factors might change that here and there. Yeah. But generally, it's all right. So I'm just comfortable just to kind of, now all I'm doing is competing against myself with the material and my own personal performance, because everything else should work itself out. Yeah. If the audience there and they're receptive, if you go somewhere where they're not, then really, then what I'm doing is just like, well, I can't really do much here. Yeah. I can do the exact same stuff I did at Stevenage somewhere else. It wouldn't fucking work. Yeah. It's
understanding that. That's half the skill, I think, is understanding that not everything works all the time. Because of factors outside of your control, because of anything that could be the act before you, the way the room's been set up, the size of the crowd, the type of crowd it is, anything can derail it. But it's understanding that, okay, if this bit doesn't work, then I can self-edit as I go. Yeah. And I can then dip into the archives and pull out something else that might work, that's slightly, I don't know, less controversial or whatever it is. Yeah. And then that's the skill. I always think when you see somebody like, I know I keep saying about him, Ian Stone, every clip he puts up is pretty much, it's a topical thing, probably to get the views and all of that kind of stuff. But he's written that little bit that afternoon. But then the ability to go out and deliver it in that professional, which sounds like a completely polished way, has been built up over years. Yeah. And that's the skill. Yeah. And it's how you deal with failure. How do you deal with failure? How do you deal with going up there and it not going shit, just in general? Like if you're someone that when you fail at something, do you then get scared of doing it another time? Does it add to the weight of the burden that you've already got? Or are you someone that turns it into something where I'm still going to be progressive? You really have to have this forward thinking mindset, whether, there's some comics that don't care about anything else but themselves, and they can still make it to some degree, because not caring about other people is an important part of this, actually. Because if you're scared of failing, then you're really going to have a tough time. Like, really going to, it's just, brutal to yourself. And then when you do it, measuring yourself up against other comics and then not getting certain spots and all of that other stuff. I mean, I see this, I was on the gig on Thursday, I was with Eli Hart. And one of the things that I really get envious of people is generally when they have a bit and you're like, oh man, like, such a good bit. I wish I had something that hit that hard, or I wish I thought of that alone. Yeah. Like, great joke. And, those are the things that I think is good from a competitive standpoint to want to be better. Yeah. But ultimately, in terms of your own personal journey, you've got to figure out how to get comfortable with the uncomfortable. You've got to learn how to recover from failure, and then actually be a little bit thoughtful around, all right, again, what happened? What am I going to do at the next gig moving forward? And I don't know. Yeah, try and enjoy it. I mean, goodness me, it's hard enough as it is. Yeah, it's so self-effacing, like it's so public. Yeah. Right? It's just so public. It's so hard. I guess for some, I mean, I like the attention, but... but ultimately, if you're not having fun, then why are you doing it?
Look, why are you doing anything, really, isn't it? Why subject yourself to just misery? Work does that enough already. Why... If you're going to do, and you've got to do that to earn money. If you're not earning money from it, then, just figure out how to get better for yourself. And maybe, you know, you spoke around just like time availability and stuff with family, you know, it's hard. Then be okay with kind of where you're at with it to a certain degree, and don't compare yourself to others. Because I could certainly do more. I could absolutely do more, but I'd be burnt out. I don't know if my relationships would be particularly good.
Yeah.
You know, work would suffer. I try and balance a lot of different things, you know.
So you asked me about the ambitions
Yeah.
part. What about yourself?
So my ambition is to just get better. And I know it sounds stupid, but I think broadly, right, the way that I think about things maybe, and certainly this in general, I think broadly, you know, you can see how far comedians can go. We see it on TV, or if you look at material, you see it from just an artistic standpoint. You know, you look at Bill Burr and you're like, the stuff he's saying, you know, oh my goodness, Nate Bargatze, how's he said that? So from that perspective, that's what I want, right? I want to be able to I want to be nasty. Like, I want to be a murderer. That's my ambition. You know, I realize as well, when you do well, you know, I like just the direct feedback and the ego boost there, and I can actually just live with that.
Yeah.
When you do well, right, you know when you've done well, because people look at you, they talk to you, they want to shake your hand, they want to tell you what it's done for them, they want to tell you their joke. Like, that is what I want, and I want it more and more, and I want to get better at doing it. And then I'll take whatever comes with it, because, you know, even now you see it, you know, it may not just happen in certain ways, whatever it means. Saying that I want to earn a living from it I'm probably closer to that now than I was certainly last year, but I don't know, it just seems so tough. The life seems so tough. I'm surprised at how well I've adapted to the lifestyle now, but I just, even for myself, outside of like my girlfriend and all the kind of things I want to do outside of work and comedy, the lifestyle just seems like so challenging.
Yeah, it's almost flipping what a lot of people are used to in terms of a working day on the head.
Yeah.
In that you're used to getting up in the morning, used to going to work, coming home, and then going off and doing comedy. But if comedy was the job, your day starts at probably 5 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're probably not getting home till 1, 2 o'clock in the morning or whatever. Or you might be in the privileged position where you can squeeze in 2 different gigs in the same night.
Yeah.
Double up and all of that. And then you're crashing at home until probably early afternoon. And it's almost like a student lifestyle.
Yeah, it's unconventional to say the least. Do you know what I mean? And I just hope that I'm enjoying it now. My ambition is to enjoy it as well. You know, make sure, just like anything, just enjoy it. Take the most out of it. You know, if it gets to the point where it's too much, I won't do it. I know I won't. I'm not that type of person.
Yeah.
I'll just move on to something else and figure out a way out. But it's hard to say. I don't know. It's weird. People say that I'm quite driven. My girlfriend says it quite a lot. Some friends and some people have. And I don't even know what that means. I don't know. I just like doing stuff I like doing. And so, you know, there seems to be a particular focus with it. I think I can be quite decent on occasions.
Yeah.
And, you know, how can we kind of maximize that? You know, there'll probably be more thoughts moving forward around, all right, how do I monetize this a bit more and put myself out there and maybe doing more on social media and stuff like that. But certainly now it's just getting better, becoming a better comic.
Yeah.
And just absolutely killing. I mean, who wouldn't want to be like someone saying that's the best comedian of all time? Like, who wouldn't want that? But
yeah. It would be nice. You go to a gig and then somebody goes, "You remind me of so and so in a particular way, in the way you're doing something and stuff like that," and getting that recognition from people. And I always think it's quite nice as well. Is that it's nice when an audience member comes up to you and just says, "You know, I really enjoyed that. That was really good, etc."
Yeah.
But I always find it even more satisfying if somebody comes up to me like a comic and goes, "That's the best I've ever seen you."
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's like a validation from within the industry as such. But they've spotted that something's different.
Yeah.
Something's got better. And then you feel like, oh, I am on this road that's going upwards. My trajectory is going up. And that is satisfying and fun.
It's so like, especially when, because that's what ultimately you do it for, even though you don't want to care about what people think.
Yeah.
You still have to care what people think. And that's
it's
what
weird.
kind of encourages you to move forward with it, because going up there and eating shit nonstop but that's like anything, you know, like if you started playing some kind of competitive sport or a game and you're constantly doing poorly, then it's not going to be easy regardless if you're just losing all the time. I mean, I don't know how some people carry on with certain things because they're just eating crap nonstop. But, you know, I don't know. For me, those words of encouragement, people talking to you, I mean, I did this gig in, goodness me, where is it? It probably won't be too far from here. It was in this brewery anyway, right? Massive room.
Yeah.
John Mann, you know, he's been doing this for bloody 100 million years. Weird space, massive, you know, proper brewery.
Yeah.
With a bar, and then the setup was like a T shape, and really hard to get any kind of reception in the room. Really difficult. MC wasn't doing too well. First act, you know, she was not happy with what she did afterwards. It was tough.
Yeah.
You know, and she's a good comic, great comic. So then I went on, and I actually remember thinking, like, I think I know what to do here. I've done stuff like this before, and you know, just weird rooms and just weird vibes and stuff. I was like, whatever. My friend came with me as well, and you know, I went up there. It's going as well as you can get in a brewery for sure. It was really good, actually. I was doing well. You know, apparently that John Mann, the guy that books it, said to my mate, like, is it usually this good? And then afterwards, this guy that was sitting next to, he just came up to me, like, after I did the sex. I was just sitting in the audience, did my set, came down, and he goes, can I get a picture with you afterwards? He goes, I just think you're going to be massive.
Wicked.
And I just was like, you don't even know what that means, right? You know, that's it's just bonkers. Even to just, and I don't say that to sound arrogant. I'd say it as a surprise. I say it as not as an appreciating, you know, that someone likes what I'm doing. It's just, I just can't believe how it's gone, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
I really cannot. I've always wanted to do it. It's been something that I've dreamed about since I was a kid. I had, you talk about the big OM, right? My mum come out, and my family, like my brothers and stuff. And that was the second time my mum seen me do stand-up. The first time was the showcase.
Yeah.
And, you know, my mum is, anyone that knows me knows my mum, and she's a tough woman, and, you know, she's funny. She can be all sorts of things. She's a tough woman. She was never the most encouraging for things. And, you know, certainly with me, and, you know, oh, why are you doing that? Stop doing that. Stop doing that. And she came up, she was sitting front row. And the next day, I went to her house, and she just said, it was really nice seeing you up there. It was like you're meant to be up there. And I just was like, that's because my mum, that is the most encouraging thing my mum's ever said to me.
That's lovely.
It was unbelievable. I just think that it's something I should be doing.
Yeah.
It's something that I'm meant to be doing, but I'm not foolish enough to think that it's easy. And it's sustainable, because who knows, like anything in life really. So, you know, I just want to just do this and hope for the best. I just really want to enjoy what I'm doing, meet people like you, get opportunities like this, you know, and just see what happens with it. I've had an unbelievable time already. I cannot believe some of the things I've done and some of the nights I've had. You know, people don't want to do it, and they say they could never do it because they're scared of not being able to do what we all want to do.
Yeah.
And that is murder hard, you know. And last year, I murdered hard a few times, like hard.
Yeah.
I had some bad moments, and not even bad, I mean like just bad gigs. There was no point where I was really that down, because I just love it anyway.
Yeah, it's such a good attitude to have at times, because I go through moments where I do have like a little bit of a crisis in confidence, and you kind of like, you sit back and go on a little run of bad gigs. And because this is probably the worst thing about when we talk about gigs that are spaced out and not, you know, all within a week, is you then get a chance to dwell on them. You never get a chance to rectify what you've done. So if you have a bad gig on a Tuesday, but you know you've got a Wednesday and a Thursday, you've got 2 days to bash it out. But if your next gig's not till the following Wednesday, you got 8 days of pondering and going, not really sure if this is for me.
Yeah. I had 3 weeks off during Christmas and New Year's. And by week 2, I was starting to think, like, I can't do this again. Like, I can't go back. Like, it's weird. When you start doing it regularly, then it's just sort of, well, at least for me, just kind of what you're doing. Or at least I try and treat it like that. You know, it's just something I'm doing.
Yeah.
Obviously, you want to perform well. You know, I think because I've always had like, I used to play sports, like, you know, so I had to turn up every week, perform, play. I took it kind of seriously. I used to mess around and stuff, but, you know, I was like, I want to turn up, I want to win, I want to play. You lose, you got to deal with that. Where some people just, maybe they don't do enough stuff, and they've never been out in those environments where you've got to just turn up again and just do it again and find ways to enjoy it, because again, it is challenging. If anyone thinks this is easy, it's not easy. Even for someone like me that really enjoys it, it's not an easy thing to do. It's not easy to be tired all the time.
No.
It's not easy to, you know, I've put on weight doing this, you know, and it just kind of happens, right?
Yeah.
It's, there's a lot of challenges that come with it. And then if you then add on the actual creative element where you go on stage and you don't believe in what you're saying. Because I have that, you know, I don't believe in some of the new stuff I'm saying now because it's new. So I haven't got quite got the confidence there with it. Again, I think maybe I get more of that. I have a good time up on stage, but the meaningful parts afterwards.
Yeah.
When people tell you how good you were, and I don't take that for granted. Like I don't expect that. I like it. I like when people say you've done well. That is the feeling that afterwards. Then when you meet people, and you know, like yourself, and people that respect you as a comic, and people offering you gigs. You know, I got an email from a booker in Cambridge who had CC'd me into another person that said, you know, get Chris on. That is great. Like that's the respect you need. The audience is the audience. It's just you turn up, they're there. Like now when you're in it, when you're going around, now you're in this circuit and it gets bigger. That's what you're in it for. You're in it for the bookers, the friends that you're meeting. You're going to this place. When people the first time you go there, you got to show up and show out, obviously, and you want to be prepared to take those moments and perform when the time counts. That's what all the work's for.
Yeah.
Once you've done that, it just unlocks a key where you're a trusted person, and then you're just building your network that way, right? You can be persistent. You can meet people and be nice. If you can perform well, people will put you on.
Yeah.
And if you think you're not getting the opportunities that you think, then I think you should work on your game, because that's what I had to do.
Yep.
I was wondering, why the fuck is no one respecting me?
Yep.
And all I've done is, last year was I wanted an extra 10 minutes. The year before that is just 10 minutes of material. That's all. And then just trying to book gigs, get a good clip. And that was it.
Yeah.
Get your hands on a good clip. I will always say that. You need a 10-minute clip. If you want 10s, if you want 15s, have a good 15-minute clip and work towards. That's even a goal year in, year out in your mind. If you just work towards, I want a good clip, and everything's driven toward that, then each gig is just preparing for that. All right, let me get a good clip.
Yeah, yeah.
And in the process, you record everything, and then at least you can learn from it. Because then every time you watch it, you're like, fuck, I need to tighten this little bit here because I can spot that gap. And then you gradually get to the point where you're like, this is a good 10-minute clip.
In a weird kind of way, you're almost doing a tour with a special at the end of it, because every single gig forms part of everything that leads up to getting that clip that you want to get.
Well, that's what, quite right. I mean, but that's what stand-up, that's when you become, when you start doing stand-up comedy, that's what that is. We're doing an open mic podcast, but then when you progress to this next thing, you have to be able to have a set, and you have to be able to put things together, and you've got to build on that set. You have to build on it, and that is the best way to do it. And then you get a good clip. People are going out there thinking that they can just do crowd work for the majority of the time. It doesn't work like that. You can do that for Instagram and stuff, but if you're talking about just doing stand-up, that's what I'm talking about, in the rooms.
Yeah.
Getting those 10, 15-minute spots that you want. I can get them multiple times now because I can actually do them. But if you getting 10-minute spots, I know a comic that said that he put out stuff online because it would get him spots. I met him a year later, and he openly admitted that was a mistake.
Okay.
Because he was getting these spots, but he couldn't do them. He was eating shit. He had to come back and revert to then doing 7s, 5s, because he couldn't do 20 minutes.
Yeah.
That's when you're going to start losing confidence.
Yeah.
That's when you're going to start deterring yourself from actually doing stand-up comedy. You know, like, oh, of course I'm shit. I'm doing 20 minutes and I ain't even that good.
Yeah.
You know, if I started doing that, I would definitely feel like I'm a bad comic. Give me a 10-minute spot. I've done it so much, I can do it now. And that's all I need. I'm not here like trying to Jones for more of it. Like,
Yeah,
do
yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a strange one, isn't it? It's what somebody classes as new isn't necessarily what new is in the comedy circuit.
What, like if you've done it for 2 years versus 20 years?
If you've done it for even if you've done it for 2 years, you're probably classed as quite new on the open mic circuit.
No, well, on the open mic circuit, I'm experienced. People be like, oh, 300 gigs. Whoa.
Yeah, people do that, but then you say 300 gigs to a booker.
Nothing.
There's nothing.
Yeah, but that goes back to just mastering that level that you're at.
Yeah.
And then because I'm so comfortable in the open mic circuit, I can practice and be really loose and be creative.
Yeah.
You know, because it's hard. You asked me the question about expectations, and there are expectations with this. It's kind of difficult because if you wanted to play 11-a-side football, right? No matter how good you are, you could find an 11-a-side football team and you could play those 90 minutes, regardless of how good you are.
Yeah, yeah.
Even if you were just the weirdest type of person that just wanted to play 90 minutes every week
Yeah.
You're terrible. You're just the worst player of all time. You can find it. There's a lot of comics there that I hear it quite often. I want to do an hour. I want to do an hour.
Yeah.
But in stand-up comedy, you can rarely do an hour if you haven't earned it.
Yeah.
Because the whole kind of concept of it is that people come to see you. So you got to earn the right to then get in an audience, to play in the right arena, to do the thing that you want to do.
Yeah.
So, what are you going to do with it? Because from a creative standpoint, you could just do the open mic circuit. You can make your own night. You can do your own thing. And you could just have a good laugh just being a weirdo up on stage with a mic. Or you could be someone that works towards something that people actually like. And it's weird because it's a byproduct of just doing well. If you do well and that's not even your purpose, you're probably going to get better opportunities.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's just kind of like there's always going to be this intrinsic expectation about how to be better, because you're not just measuring yourself against people with just good material. You're measuring against the spots. You're measuring against notoriety, money,
Yeah, money can never be the driver at this this level, I don't think.
At any level. I really hope it doesn't become something that I'm looking at. Look, if I'm a fucking multimillionaire, if I'm doing stand-up comedy, don't get me wrong, I'm buying a boat. But, if I love doing the OM, so I could absolutely do something like that for, and be a part of what I think is a wider community and add towards that and put that message out.
Yeah.
I really enjoy that aspect of it. I love stand-up comedy in terms of what it brings people, the diversity. That's why it's really interesting when people say, I couldn't do it. There's so many different types of people that do it.
Yeah.
Right? And I guarantee you there's someone that's worse than you on stage doing it right now. There probably will be. So, just don't worry about it, like that. Put your expectations in the right area. When you're starting out, just put it on trying to get on stage, trying to get better, trying to learn it. And then I guess now where my expectations are is just I need to figure out how to, consistently. I'm going to start getting opening spots now. So I need to figure out how to do that, because that's the most unforgiving spot there is.
Yeah.
It's hard to open. And there are people that are really, really good at it, like professional openers, because there's a knack to it. But you're never going to get the most receptive audience, but I want to be as good at opener as I can be. So I'm going to have to try and work that out.
So one thing you never got asked, but we already know the answer to it, but I'm going to ask it just out of politeness, because the question didn't exist in the first one, was if you was to become famous and you get a Netflix special, what music you'd walk onto the stage to? I think we know the answer.
Yeah. Well, it would be, Notorious, isn't it? The Notorious B.I.G. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
There wouldn't be anything better. I think that is kind of my thing. I mean, there are a couple of songs I like, but that gives, I think it gives a good impression.
Yeah, I will be honest with you. When I didn't know all the lyrics to it.
Yeah. I don't really know. I just like to start.
So when you told me that's what you wanted to walk on the stage to in Stevenage, I put it on. I've gone, I'm not sure I can play this at the start. She Googled, is there a clean version of this? There isn't.
Come on, those people are rough, man. They'd probably start yelling at themselves.
I didn't know what was going to be in the room, did I?
Yeah.
So I went, oh, fuck it. It's only 10 seconds. We'll see what happens.
Come on, I'm black.
And it was
Mark.
fine.
Come on, let me be black.
Fine.
But it exist.
It's perfect.
Yeah.
It's perfect.
I know, a bit of a boring answer, isn't it?
Yeah, well, we all knew the answer, but I felt like I had to ask it anyway, seeing as you missed out on that first question. I can't remember which episode that came in, but I know it wasn't in the first one. But the one thing that I do ask every comedian is if they want to take part in the Comedian's Challenge, which I know Chris has done once already.
Yeah.
It was actually quite a good one.
It worked quite successfully, innit? Yeah, that wasn't too bad, yeah.
It needed a bit of explaining to you, but you got there.
I didn't understand the joke. Funny about that, isn't it?
It was all about Hoovers. It's on the Instagram wall.
Yeah.
As well. But
Yeah.
you did it quite well because you added a little topper onto it as well.
Yeah, man. I thought I set a good standard for kind of how to use a joke. I mean, I think some people probably being out there being a little bitch. But no, you work it into the set. So
Yeah.
I want to, before you start, depending on the joke, I think that, I don't know, I'm going to try and think around, how to spice it up a little bit, and certainly the situation. I know I just said it, doing it in a proper, at some kind of gig. I would like to try and avoid doing it at just a strict open mic, like but we'll see. It depends how bad it is.
Yeah, well,
See, I've set bad expectations now.
I'm sure the majority of people know.
Or actually, I'm trying some new stuff at the moment. So let's see if I can make a joke that kind of sits in that. I don't know.
I did
These
it.
jokes are bad.
I know they're bad. I used one in one of my own sets, and I actually kept it for 3 gigs.
Well, that's because of your jokes.
I know. It brought the level up quite a bit. That's probably why I've never been booked to that original venue again. But yeah, for those of you that are listening or watching this for the very first time, I set the comedians a challenge to tell a joke from this book called The Little Book of Shit Jokes by Sid Finch. And the comedians get to pick a joke from this to tell on stage, but they only get to pick it by page number. So what they get, I've got no idea until they're given a number. And if they pick a number that's already gone, then we keep going until we find a joke that's not been used before.
Yeah.
And then Chris will kindly film it, put it up on Instagram, and everybody can laugh or give him praise about the hilarity that he's done with this joke. So if you can give me a number between 5 and 95.
Oh, so the first 4 gone.
Well, it only starts on, page 1 is The Little Book of
pages.
Shit Jokes.
Yeah, it's not pages. So 5 and 95. Because I was going to pick 2. I think I don't know if I did. Did I pick 22 last time?
I can't remember, actually. I probably should have looked, shouldn't I?
Yeah. Do you write people's names next to it?
Yeah, I've got them all here. So
yeah, good,
I can go
good.
through this and see who's not done it.
Probably not right now.
Oh, yeah. Number 22 was your original one.
Yeah, I'm sure of it. Let's go for 55.
Oh, it's a long one.
Go for it.
Okay. Right. The joke I want you to tell on stage. Bear in mind, I'm reading this the first time, so I might look confused. A woman in a restaurant spots another woman enjoying a steak. She calls the waiter over, points and says, "I'll have what she's having." 2 minutes later, the waiter returns with sauce up his sleeve and half a plate of food. "It was a bit of a struggle," he said, "but I got it."
Sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe shit.
Is that the joke?
That's the joke.
Is there a punchline or?
That's.
I think you didn't get that as well as I didn't.
I'm still struggling.
Did anyone get that? Can I read it? Can I just let me?
Yeah. See if I've said it really badly.
Page 55. A woman in a restaurant spots another woman enjoying a steak. She calls the waiter over, points and says, "I'll have what she's having." 2 minutes later, the waiter returns with sauce up his sleeve and half a plate of food. It was a bit of a struggle, but yeah, so he basically took her meal off Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's tough.
I actually
That's
have no
really tough.
objection to you picking another number.
No, go for it. That doesn't even make no sense.
I mean, you've made progress over the last year, and that feels like that could ruin everything.
Give me a challenge. Am I allowed to adapt it? Can I do something about that?
You can do anything you want with that.
No, look, we'll do it. Maybe I won't do that at a paid gig.
No.
Let's see.
That's fucking awful.
That's as bad as any of the ones I've heard in there.
The joke on page 54 is just so much better.
Yeah, but I picked 55.
I know.
What's 54?
It's easy to stop women from drinking fabric softener, but it's harder to deter gents.
Ah, that's crap.
I know it's crap, but...
No, I've got 55. Look, I'll man up. Come on.
Okay.
I've only got to do it once. Look, again, we're talking about failure here, right?
We are.
Let me just fail and then show you how I am resilient.
If you can pull this one out of the fire...
A successful point with me just doing it with a smile on my face, because that is a terrible joke. That is brutal. All right.
There's got to be a way of getting...
Hey, look. You know what I mean? There's going to be some bad comments that you're going to get on here, and they're going to have a go at that, so you might as well give it to me. Yeah, I'm joking, everyone. Everyone's lovely.
So where can people find you again?
You can find me at Chris_J_Ali on Instagram. You can follow me on... I haven't put a vlog out in a while. I barely do anything with it, but I don't know. Sometimes it just gets on my mind. I bought some new technology. It didn't quite work, and now I can't find the time or the capacity to just make it better again. So we'll get the vlogs out again, but find me on YouTube, My Comedy Journey. A lot of young comics quite like it.
I think it's great.
Mark can attest to it, and you can see some absolute horrific gigs on there, dog shit ones.
But you can see some great ones as well.
And some good ones as well, I guess. And then the OM Comedy Club, which is, my baby, my open mic. That is it, at the OM Comedy Club if you're a comic and you're listening to this, message me. Tell me that you've been listening to Open Mic Podcast, and I will be sure to get you on for sure. No, 100%. You know what I mean? You know, you want to be about the culture. You want to be about people that's listening to this and hopefully get something out of it. Will probably be the type of person that will embrace the OM, and that's what I want to build with it. You know, I want it to be somewhere where we can go and have fun, good or bad.
Yes,
because you know that's what it's about. So yeah, the OM Comedy Club. I'll be putting out some. Well, who knows when this puts out? OM Comedy Club. And yeah,
I've got to ask the one question though: is how many comedians have asked what OM stands for?
Loads, and you know, I really can't stand it when people say the you know, there's a fucking full stop in the middle. So yeah, but that's the point, you know, because what I realized when I made the name, it kind of engages people in a different way. It's the open mic, and they're like, you know, so they don't wonder. I just couldn't call it like, you know, the bloody chuckle heart or the, you know, I just couldn't do it. I'm so sorry. Look, no disrespect to everyone out there, but you know, call it, you know, the comedy curtains, the ha he's. I just give me a break.
That's why I call this podcast what it is. And it's quite funny if somebody messages me and says I really enjoyed it, and first one of the first questions I'll give back is how did you find it? So I'll just search for open mic comedy on,
and it just makes sense,
podcast.
Doesn't it? It literally just makes sense. Yeah. I know some people that put nights on at comedy and they call it the London Comedy Club because you just Google that. And
you can find us on Instagram, Open Mic Comedy Pod. We've got a website, openmiccomedypod.com, but don't bother visiting. Nobody ever does. If you've enjoyed this episode, please give it a like, follow, subscribe, rate it 5 stars, do all of that kind of funky stuff because that really does help get us up the charts. We're there in around the Apple podcast chart, so we're doing okay. And it gives an audience to everybody that's listening. And if you're a comedian as well, give it a like, follow, subscribe as well, because if you come on here, that means there's a bigger audience for you to be talking to as well. So lastly, I want to say thank you very much again for coming on.
Thank you, Mark, man. I tell a lot of people about the Open Mic Podcast. I think it's absolutely wonderful what you're doing. You know that. I said it at the beginning and I'll say it now. Getting asked to do the first one is honestly one of the best thing that I've been asked to do from doing this. It was like huge respect, and you know you're my guy, so you know I appreciate all the kind of positivity you always give me. Good vlog comes out, send me a message and stuff like that, so you're the man. The podcast is great, and you know you're doing your thing around Stevenage now, so keep an eye out, everyone. Yes. So, and for everyone else, I will speak to you all again very, very soon. Thank you very much.